said before that you never really know that God is all that you need until God is all that you have. I live in Western North Carolina, a place that was hit hard by Hurricane Helene. And over the past few days, I've seen the loss of life, the loss of houses, the loss of property, the loss of many things. But for so many people, what I've also seen is not the loss of faith. In my community, I've seen people come in to assist with help, to bring supplies, but people also coming together to praise God. It's reminded me of the story of Job, that Job was a faithful man that lost everything in his life except for his faith. With the storms that have taken place, it's easy sometimes for us to lose heart, for us to become discouraged. But even in the midst of tragedy, God is still in control. Do you remember in the New Testament when the apostles of Jesus were out on the sea and their storms raged around them? It wasn't until they realized that Jesus was in the storm with them that they calmed themselves. There's an old hymn by a man named Horatio Spafford, and he was well acquainted with tragedy. He was a successful lawyer and businessman, but the fire of Chicago took his business. Later in his life, he had a voyage across the sea to Europe, and he sent his wife and 3 daughters ahead of him, and he would come shortly after. And on that voyage, the ship crashed, and it sank, and his wife sent a telegram to Horatio saying, "Safe, alone." And later on, Horatio's wife said she does not understand why God took her daughters, but someday she will. Years later, Horatio would write the song, "It Is Well With My Soul." And the second verse, it says, "Though Satan should buffet, though trials should come, let this blessed assurance control, that Christ hath regarded my helpless estate, and has shed his own blood for my soul." Even in the midst of tragedy, God cares for you. Whether it is a physical tragedy or whether it is a spiritual tragedy, God has not given up on you. And I remember that as the storm passed, different people in the community, they met out on the streets and they were looking up to see if the storm had passed. Can I remind you that sometimes in our lives, it'll seem like the storms will continue and continue and continue. But Christ is there in the midst of those storms. So look up, because the storm